Well, good morning and welcome to Lord's Day Live. I'm glad you're with me. Well, look at you looking at me, looking at you. Isn't this great? Double me looking at you, looking at me, looking at you. Basic Bible, here we are. Me, Floyd the Fly, and you. Glad to have you along for the ride or along for the fly. Oh, we'll talk about, well, let's just get after this because we're going to talk about Floyd the Fly, but remembering Revelation, that's what we're dealing with this semester. I hope you're putting it in your brain. We're up to Acts chapter 8. No, we're not. It's Revelation. What am I even talking about? I think Floyd the Fly has had an impact on my brain. We're in the book of Revelation, and we're up to chapter 8. Where did Acts even come from? I have no idea. All right, moving along to segment Una Patuna. We do the doodle, and as you know, this particular semester, I'm employing my son as he is helping us to, what? I see God in a fly? Can you doodle a fly? I got to be honest with you, I hate flies. Oh, man, they're just, they're everywhere. We were just yesterday. Cindy had the fly swatter out, and I'm whacking, and I'm smacking, and I'm doing my best to kill old Floyd the Fly. I hate flies. So I got to thinking about this. Is it possible that even in flies, we can find God? So I Googled it. I said, Google, what in the world? What's a fly good for? And I was really kind of surprised that flies have a lot of purposes. They're kind of like the garbage men of the world, if you will, What would happen if you didn't have anybody picking up your trash? It'd look pretty bad, wouldn't it? Well, they also provide a lot of food for things like my chickens. So there you go. I can even see God in Floyd the Fly. How about you? But the question is, can you draw Floyd the Fly? And so I went to my buddy Gabriel and I said, Gabriel, can you teach us how to draw Floyd the Fly? And Gabriel said, why, sure I can, Dad. And so here you go. Remember, the steps are at the right. And here we go. So first thing Gabriel's going to tell you is he's going to say, you're going to need 3 circles. And they overlap. Did you notice this? Oh, dear. Got a little glitch there. Just kind of, did you see it pause? You saw that. Yeah, it did. All right. And then he's going to erase some of these circles. So, I guess it almost looks like a caterpillar kind of a thing, doesn't it there? But what's this? Oh, draw the face. Oh, these are the eyes. I believe these may be the eyes. He says the flies have weird looking mouths. That's definitely weird. That's definitely weird. And then he's got these little antennae or whatever those things are. Okay, now we're going to, he's giving hair something to the body there. And then, here we go. We're going to draw the wings. What do you say? They should look upside down triangles. Yeah, that's not bad, Gabriel. You might have a future in artisticness. Here are the legs. Their legs are like 3 stick figures. That's a good point, Gabriel. They are. They're tucked in the back, so you got that one tucked in. Oh, ain't God. Come on, Gabriel. You can do this. Ain't God cool? Why, yes, Gabriel, God is cool with an exclamation point. And so there you go. There you can draw yourself a fly, which leads me to this particular question. Where do you see God? You may not see him in flies, but, if you think about it, even flies and mosquitoes and wasps and things that kind of bug you, bugs, get it? Even there's lessons to be learned, right? About God and why he puts things together and that kind of thing. So yeah, even in a fly, God is cool. That owl is eyeballing that fly because I think owls like to eat flies. All right. Remembering romance is not what we're talking about. What's wrong with my brain this morning? Remembering Revelation with Floyd the Fly. He doesn't get nearly the respect he should. But remember, the book of Revelation is written to the 7 churches of Asia, and here they are, right in that area. All right, moving on up. Here we go as we're moving on up. We're into chapter 1. Remember, and John is assigned to write the 7 churches. Chapters 2 and 3, he does that. Chapter 3, he's writing specifically to the church of Laodicea. Chapter 4, throne room of heaven. Ain't that cool? Chapter 5, we've got the blood of the Lamb. What's that about? Oh, yeah, only the slain Lamb of God can open the scroll. That's right. And then in chapter 6, we start opening it. We get 6 seals opened. But in chapter 7, there's a little bit of an interlude. And this interlude is dealing with the folks who are coming out of the Great Tribulation. That's chapter 7. See the lightning bolt? That's the 7. And then today, we're into chapter 8. In chapter 8, we're going to get the last of the seals, because there's 7 of these things, all right? And the 7th seal and the, what's that? 7th seal and 4 trumpets. Oh, I see. So we're going to start blowing the trumpets, okay? And Debbie says, even people can be pests. Like Floyd. That's true, Debbie. That is true. God bless you. Good to see you this morning too, Debbie. All right, chapter 8, trumpets. You see, I've got the 8 there with the bell. I think they call it the bell at the end of the trumpet there. There you go. 7th seal, 4 trumpets. Look at there. So there you have it. All right. So that's a little bit complicated, but I'll explain it as we go along, because we've got 2 things kind of happening here. We're going to get the 7th, the last seal is going to open, but we're also going to start blowing trumpets. And anyhow, Floyd, you with me? Okay, good deal. All right. So if I was going to test you over that particular area of material, I would come in from the side right here, and I would say, what is the theme of Revelation chapter 8? Can you do the picture? I thought about trying to doodle chapter 8 with you, but I can't draw a trumpet to save myself. You know what we could do, though? We could draw an 8. I don't mind doing the 8. We'll put it on its side, okay? And so remember how I told you. You just go like this. Remember? All right. And then if you want to bubble it, just kind of go outside the thing like this, right? There you go. Everybody got me? There's your 8. Now, I don't know how you make that into a trumpet. See, here's the trumpet. And that's there's some kind of square things down here that I think those are the things they use. They put their fingers on, and then they blow up here. And this looks like a pair of binoculars. There's my buddy Greg in Maryland. Greg, didn't you play the trumpet when we were in band? I was in the drum section. I think my buddy Greg might have played the trumpet. That's a pretty sad trumpet, but anyhow, just remember what what's the other kid's name? Gabriel. Just remember what Gabriel did. Let's go back. I'll show you. You ready? Go back here and look at this. See, now that's a trumpet. Not what I did. All right, moving on up. All right, so we got the questions. You're supposed to do that. You know that. Floyd's still with us. Moving on. All right, we now have to have a moment of brevitation from my dog friend. Why aren't dogs good dancers? The dog asks us. Any thoughts on that one? Why aren't dogs good dancers? Well, clearly it's because they have 2 left feet. My buddy the dog, he says, personally, I find this joke to be offensive. He never changes his expression. If you guys notice that, it doesn't matter. If he's offended, he looks like that. If he's laughing, he looks like that. If he's got a bellyache, he looks like that. So why are dogs pitiful dancers? Because they got 2 left feet. Literally. They really do. One's at the front, one's at the back. You know what I'm saying? Oh, well. Anyhow, segment number 2. We're going to make a memory. And so as we begin to memory, we're going to look at Romans. Well, not Acts, not Romans. We're going to do Revelation. I'm loony today. All right, Revelation chapter 8, verse 1 through 2. When the Lamb opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And then I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. And so here's where you got the mixture of 2 things going on. There are actually 3 things of 7. There's actually 4, but the 4th one of them doesn't get explained very much. But you got 7 seals. You got 7 trumpets, and then later on we're going to have 7 bowls of wrath. All right, and so knowing that, there's a lot of 7s going on. Well, in this particular verse, we've got 2 of those lists of 7 coming together. The 7th, the last seal, is being broken, and the 7 trumpets are beginning to blow. So you got 2 of those lists coming together. That's why I thought this would be a perfect memorization voices for you. So there you go. You see how I do it. Okay, each line 5 times. All right. And if you can't get it that way, what's the next way? You blank out certain words, right? And you post them all over the house, and then every time you see it, you got to say it, and mom gives you $50. Well, maybe that last part doesn't work, but it'd make me memorize about anything if mom gave me $50. How about it, mom? She's over there listening. I'm gonna go to mom's house later for lunch. Love Sundays. Oh, I love Sundays. Eat at mom's house. But anyhow, how about it, mom? I'll memorize some parts of the Bible if you give me $50 a verse. Oh my, I could get rich. All right, segment number 2, test prep. What are we going to prep you? Well, there I am, hanging like a bat. How many trumpets did the angels have? Well, look it up. Can you quote the memory verses? There's 2 of them. Remember, we got 2 of those sets of 7 that are coming together in these 2 verses. Really good verses. You with me, Floyd? All right, he got that cheesy smile on his face like he has just done something big. All right, here we go. Time to laugh again. How many books can you put into an empty backpack? I have often wondered this. In fact, when I used to carry a backpack, which was not very often, but when I used to carry a backpack, I tended to overstuff my backpack. And so I'm asking you, how many books can you put into an empty backpack? Well, you can only put 1 book in there because after that, it isn't empty anymore. That's true. I got you. You did not expect that. No, you didn't. No, you did not. How many books can you put into an empty backpack? Only 1, because after you put the 1 in there, it's not empty no more. It's got 1 book in it. Oh. 3. Segment 3. Ponder a passage from the book of not Acts, not Romans, from the book of Revelation. Here we go. How are we going to ponder? Well, this is the way we're going to ponder. Notice I've even got your pictures up here this time. The reason I did that is because I need you to see, as I've been trying to explain, that in chapter 8, 2 of these sets of 7s are going to kind of overlap one another, okay? We're going to have 7 seals, and the 7th seal, it's kind of hard to say, is going to be broken in chapter 8. But we're also going to start handing out trumpets. And 7 trumpets are also going to start blowing. I don't guess all 7 of them get blown, but we're going to see 7 trumpets there, okay? The number 7 comes up a lot in the book of Revelation. I don't know whether you ever thought about that, right? But remember, you got chapter 6, chapter 8. That's where the seals start to be broken. Chapter 8 is where we're going to have the last seal broken, then we're going to get some trumpets, okay? But back to the number 7. I'm going to give you a screen. This next screen it's not going to be on your test or anything, but moms and dads, you might want to screenshot this because I think it's really kind of interesting that, oh dear, Floyd, you got to go. Let me see. Yeah, you got to go. Sorry. Say goodbye, Floyd. Floyd says goodbye. All right. This is a rather interesting screenshot because what I did is it took a little bit of research on my part, and that's okay. But I took and I researched the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and eventually I said we're going to have 7 bowls of wrath. Well, there you have the listing, kind of a summation of what each of those are, okay? And interesting factoid, the number 7 is used over 40 times in the book of Revelation, according to my research. Isn't that something? So in chapter 6, we're going to start opening seals, and we only get 6 of them, right? Because in chapter 8, we get the 7th. But then also in chapter 8, we're going to get 7 trumpets are going to be blown, or at least they're going to start being blown. I think we only get 4 of them in that chapter, but we're going to start blowing trumpets. And then later on in the book, we're going to have 7 bowls of wrath, and here they are, and that's going to actually happen in chapter 16. But I think that's a rather interesting screenshot if you want to grab that and hold it, maybe drill your young people later on, with regards to whether or not they can put them if they're older, especially if they can put them all in there. What are the 7 seals? What are the 7 trumpets? What are the 7 bowls? Because what I did is, you can see that I kind of try to summarize it a little bit, so it's not a real lengthy description. I'll get out of the way one more time. There it is. See it? Whoop, whoop. All right. That will not be on the final test that I will present, but moms and dads, you might want to present it. All right. Remembering Revelation as far as pondering the passage, though, here are some of the things I do feel are important from the first 5 verses of chapter 8. When the Lamb opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. It seems as if this silence in heaven is also connected to what's going to happen here with regards to the peals of thunder, flashes of lightning, etc., earthquakes on the earth. That seems to also be a part of this seventh seal that is being broken, okay? And so when the seal is broken, you're going to have that happening, but then kind of as an interlude in between, we're also going to have some trumpets that we're going to hand out, and we're going to start blowing them as well, all right? Then I saw the seven angels who stand before God, and seven trumpets. And again, the emphasis there on seven. We already talked about that. But now we're going to have trumpets. Why trumpets? Well, think about it. What are seals? Seals are meant to keep something private, right? That's why they're sealed on there. I got a wedding invitation just the other day, and on the back was a seal that I had to break in order to open the envelope to get what was inside. Same thing is true here. Seals on a scroll would have to be broken in order for you to see what's inside. And remember, the only person who was worthy to do that was who? The slain Lamb of God, Jesus. Well, when you do seals, you understand that imagery. Well, now we're at trumpets. Why a trumpet? Trumpets were used back in the day to announce. In fact, you can see it sometimes even today at football games or things of that nature, where it's used to say, we're about to start something here. Okay, so trumpets were used for announcing or gaining attention. So seven trumpets are going to be handed out. And another angel came and stood at the altar with a golden censer. So we got seven trumpets being handed out. Then a totally different angel, evidently not one of the seven, is going to get this golden censer. I got me a picture offline here of a golden censer. A censer is essentially something that you put hot coals in. And then what they would do is they then would put incense over top of the hot coals. The coals are hot, burning the incense, making smoke. Smoke smells good. You ever smell incense? We'll talk about that later on. All right, so you got a golden incense. And he was given got a golden censer, forgive me. That's the censer. Inside is the incense making the smoke as it burns. So he got a golden censer, and he was given much incense to offer with the prayers of the saints. So there's a lot of imagery there as well, as if your prayers smell good. You ever think about that? On the golden altar before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which with the prayers of the saints, rose before God from the hand of the angel. Then the angel took the censer, so I guess it's the same censer that has been using for our prayers, etc., make it smelling good. Then the angel took that same censer and he filled it with fire. But this time, he's going to throw it on the earth. And when he throws it on the earth, there's going to be peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Again, I believe that is part of the seventh seal. Okay? And so there is this last mystery to be opened, and that is the judgment of God is being cast down upon the earth. So, test prep for segment number 3. Let me step over here. Well, there you are doing the... See how I got my hand here? That's like introducing it. See how I'm shaking my head? That's like prideful. That's supposed to be prideful. Sorry. All right, there you go. 5 questions from this particular segment, but I think you can do this because, well, you're smarter than me. That's why I have to drink water. I choked. I think I might have swallowed a fly. But I certainly did not swallow Floyd. Floyd's still with us. He's just down here on the floor. All right, moving on. Here we go. Oh, trivia time. But it's trivia that's not trivial. That means it's trivia stuff that's kind of interesting factoids, but it's not trivial in that it's important for us to know because it comes out of the Bible. So I'll move my funny looking head, and here we go. Where did Jesus grow up? That is your trivia question. Where did Jesus grow up? I'll answer that at the end of this segment. Segment number 4, apply the why. This is where we get to why do we study Revelation chapter 8? What does that even mean to us? Well, there's a lot of stuff we could have talked about there, but the thing that I was drawn to was this incense to offer with the prayers of the saints. That's really kind of interesting. You ever smelled incense? I have. It can smell really, really good. It can really make the room really. What is it about the smoke rising with our prayers that makes you think of the way the prayers work? You ever think about that? That probably has a lot to do with why we talk about our prayers going up to heaven. When Jesus ascended, which direction did he go? Ascension means up, right? So, there's a whole lot of symbolism going on here. This idea that we go up, not down. Okay, down seems to be negative. Up seems to be positive. And so that's the symbolism that's at work here. And do you ever think of your prayers smelling good? Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because our prayers are, what does he say here? And he was given much incense to offer with the prayers of the saints. You ever think of your prayers smelling good? I got to be honest with you. Sometimes I get in bad moods and my prayers smell bad. They do. They're negative, all that kind of a thing. But I want to have good smelling prayers. Maybe that's something to think about. All right. If I were to ask you a question about that segment further, I would ask you this. What makes our prayers pleasing to God? Not just smell good. I mean, I think that's the idea, that they are pleasing to God. He likes to hear from us. I'll give you a hint. When you go talk to your mom or your dad, what makes the things that you say attractive to your parents? Oh, I'm so glad you came and told me that, son. What are some of the things that you say that don't make it very attractive to your parents? Oh, I wish you hadn't even told me. What makes our prayers pleasing to God? Think about that. Oh, time to answer our question. Where did Jesus grow up? Do you know the answer? Where did Jesus grow up? Well, the answer is Nazareth, according to Luke chapter 2, 39 through 40, which is a pretty good passage for you to read about the childhood of Jesus. All right, one last moment of brevitation. What do you call an old snowman? Now, I just want to give a brief insert of insertion here. I am wearing my long sleeve shirt because it's cool. I love cool. It is fall. Growing up back in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. Remember Greg? I call him Butch. Remember Butch back? This is time of year for football. Putting on your sweaters. We used to love that season. But we're not quite to snow season yet. However, it's just around the corner. So when snow comes, what do? First thing everybody has to do whenever there is snow is build a snowman, right? Well, yes, it is at my house. And so what do you call an old snowman? He'd been there a while. What do you call an old snowman? Oh, dear. You call him water. Have you ever had a snowman melt in your front yard? You might call him mud. Oh, dear. Oh, my. Segment number 5. Time to test you. Did you learn anything? Do you got anything up there in your little noodle or not? I believe you do, because I believe in you and you got this. Here we go. Notice we're at test number 6. We're moving right along, aren't we? There I am saying to you, I believe in you. There are your 10 questions. So take a screenshot of that. That's what's going to be on the final test, folks. I'm telling you, it is. Right there's the final test. It's like looking you right in the face. You got it? Do you? What? You do? Okay. Well, that was fun. Sure, yes, it was. It was. If that was fun and you had fun and you really think that fun stuff is what we had right then I want to ask you to do me a favor. Would you please pray for us? And pray especially for her, because she's got to put up with him. There's my address. And if you have any extra mission money that you've set aside to support good works and you think this is a good work, we would love to have your support. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you. I mean it. I really do. And I'm proud of you. I mean it. I really am. Sonny Chow saying, be there. Matthew 16, 26. Well, my friends, that leads us into our prayer segment. And I noticed Debbie is watching. And Debbie, earlier in this week, she asked if I remember some of her family members who are right down here. Well, that's Florida right there. And they got hit by the hurricane. I've got another good friend, Henry, who lives in Arizona, used to live in Florida. I think he's got 2 daughters who are living in Florida right now. And one of them, I think she's lost pretty much everything during this hurricane. And so, and I've got others. We've got Mapsters who live there, and on I can go with individuals that I'm aware of. You're aware of individuals who are there that hurricane has moved up the East Coast and hit South Carolina as well. And my buddy Greg, who lives in Maryland, he's watching. Probably getting a lot of weather from that. In fact, he texted me earlier this morning. He says kind of an overcast blue kind of a day. He's hurting. He's got an injury. And so pray for my buddy Greg. But a lot of hurricane stuff and folks that are hurting, etc. Pray for these folks, please. By the way, now's the time. If you've got other prayer requests to put up there, now's the time to get it up there. The cancer of Catholicism. I hope you'll stick around for my sermon time because we're going to talk about we're dealing with tough questions, tough topics. And the question this morning is the Pope the head of the church? And I've been debating Catholics and others online. And I think it's something we really need to talk about because I'm going to show you this morning in what I had to say that although the Catholic Church does a lot of good things, they really do, hospitals and on you can go, phenomenal humanitarian work. Even though that is true, Matthew chapter 7 says there will be folks on the day of judgment that will say to Jesus, but Lord, Lord, did we not? And then they give this list of things that they have done. And God is going to say at the end of the process, depart from me, you evil doers. He's going to say that what you did was basically evil because you didn't do what I say do. When the Catholic Church steals the glory of Jesus by making the Pope the head of the church, when the Catholic Church steals the glory of the Father by allowing people to bow before the Pope and on you go, when the Catholic Church allows that kind of thing to happen, even though they do a great deal of humanitarian work, which I am thankful for, that work will not save them. And we need to point that out because at the end of the day, it's more important for you to struggle here, yet be with God in glory, than to have humanitarian aid here and spend eternity in hell. The cancer of Catholicism. Please stick with me for my sermon time. Russia annexing parts of the Ukraine. I'm told that the Ukraine, however, they're fighting back, and they've actually surrounded some of the military of Russia, and so it's really kind of in flux as to what's happening over there. Please be in prayer for Christians both on the Russian side, the Ukrainian side, and those caught in that conflict. Flu season. I got me a runny nose this morning. Last time, I was feeling pretty lousy. I'm feeling a lot better now, but yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of sniffling between now and the spring. But remember all those who are struggling, headaches. My mom gets terrible headaches according to the weather that's coming through, etc., which kind of leads me to that one after the next one, chronic pain. Pray for my mom and all the pain that she has. You've got folks that are like that. I mean, they spend most of their day just hurting, really bad hurting, and they can't focus. They want to get things done. I'm amazed how much my mother does get done with all the pain she goes through. Would you please pray for my mom, others who have chronic pain? Skipping back one in the list, SBS students in Kenya and India. And I'm so thankful for these students. And would you be praying for them? The Restoration School of Biblical Studies actually helps two individuals who are ministers over there, one in Kenya, one in India. And we actually help them with their work according to the amount of Bible study they do with me. It's kind of our accountability factor. And they do these things with regards to the videos and answering questions, etc. Would you be praying for those students? Phenomenal people. And they need our prayer. My buddy Greg says I had to, he says his wife's got him doing hard labor. Anyhow, Greg, thanks for listening when you can. And those who have chronic pain, my buddy Greg has pain a lot. And then lastly, Gabriel, I'm so proud of this kid. He's the one who does my artwork, and that kind of thing. He's got his own art ministry, Gabriel's Graphics, with an X. Anyhow, Gabriel also, he's conducting 2 Bible studies each week, one on Wednesday night and one on Thursday night. Pray for Gabriel and the heavy load that he has with regards to ministry stuff that he's doing with his artwork, as well as the Bible studies that he's conducting, etc. All right, how about you? You got any prayer requests that we need to add? Now's the time to put it up there. All right, filling in time here because I always try to wait till 9:30 before I go live with the sermon segment. That way folks can time it and they know when to. Some folks don't want to hang around for my Bible class, or they don't want to be here early for my prayer request time, but they do want to get in for the sermon time. So that's what I do. I just kind of fill in things. See how I'm talking here? I'm just filling in things. Man, what a monster storm. Wow. All right, it's Lord's Day Live, and we are now into the sermon segment of Lord's Day Live. I've got a very, very important question for us to talk about this morning, and I'm thankful that you are with me. Tough topics. Today's topic is the Pope, the head of the church. I've been debating some Catholics online, and a lot of what I'm going to share this morning actually is stuff that I had solidified in my own value system years ago, but it's just recently come to head with me because most of you know I spend most of my time debating Calvinists. But just recently, as I began to see what's happening with regards to Catholicism, I'm just amazed at some of our young people who have grown up within the church, the Restoration churches. They've grown up only to abandon those principles, to go off into the legalism and the carnal opulence and materialism of Catholicism. I don't understand how that can even happen. How do parents, anyhow? Is the Pope the head of the church? Let's just go with that. Here are the 5 questions for those of you who are part of the School of Biblical Studies that we hope to cover in the course of this lesson. Screenshot that, then you'll have it ready. All right, ready? All right, here we go. All right, first of all, is the Pope the head of the church? I want to take you to Matthew chapter 16. And I want you to see some very, very important things in Matthew 16, because this is the root of the problem as far as Catholicism is concerned. When they try to establish their authority, why they see the apostolic tradition being passed down all these 2,000 years, etc., they are bound to go to Matthew 16. So we need to spend a moment there. Matthew 16, Jesus is speaking, and he's going to reply to something that Peter says, which is the opening. Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." That's the statement. That's very, very important to this context, okay? Jesus responding to that is going to say, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." Now, up to this point, what is he talking about? He's talking about this statement. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And the blessing, what's that about? It's about the statement. Who revealed this statement to Peter? Well, that was revealed by the Father in heaven. So up to this point, the entire context has been pointed back to what Peter said, right? But when you get to verse 18, the Catholic Church leaps out of that contextual mode, and they make a grandioso decision. Verse 18, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." Jesus is using a play on words here. But remember, up until 18, the entire context has been about what Peter said. All right? Very important that we understand these words. The word Peter, which is this one over here, Petros, a stone or a boulder. You can read the rest of the definition if you desire. Remember, the Greek language is so beautiful. It's so important for us to recognize because the Greek language died shortly after the end of the 1st century, which means that the meanings of the Greek words, the Koine Greek, are frozen in time. They no longer change. They're not evolving any longer. So we can go back and know, by comparing with other writings, even secular writings of the day, we can go back and know exactly what the term meant at the time. So, Peter means stone. Rock means a large mass of rock. A rock, a ledge, a cliff, a cave, a stony ground. It's like bedrock. It's the foundation. Foundational. So, Peter means a stone. But rock actually means the foundational rocky soil, stone, boulder, rocky cliff, whatever you, okay? Similar words, and Jesus no doubt is making a play on those words because it is Peter, stone, who is going to give us the statement, which is the rock, the foundation of the church. Application number 1, Jesus did not make Peter the first pope. He made Peter's confession the bedrock foundation of the church. What Jesus is doing here is not elevating one man above another. That would violate what he'd already told him not to do. You're all brothers. Don't be calling each other rabbi. Don't be elevating one as if to put them in place of God and calling him father. Don't be doing that stuff. because they go and they stand in the marketplace and they want to be, revered by all the people. It sound like the Pope. He said, don't be doing that stuff. I'm not elevating Peter. What I'm elevating is the statement Peter made. First application with regards to, is the Pope the head of the church, is to know this: Peter was not the first Pope. If anything, Peter's statement was the first opening volley, if you will, of foundational bedrock values that Jesus was putting forth. And it just so happens that Peter's the one who said it. Number two, by way of example, when Peter entered, as he going to Cornelius a Gentile, Cornelius met him and he fell down at his feet and worshiped him. But Peter lifted him up and said, stand up, I too am a man. Big application. Even if Peter had been the first Pope, and as I've just done told you, he ain't, or he wasn't. But if Peter had been the first Pope, even then, he knew not to let others bow before him in reverence. Yes, I recognize there are other places in Scripture where people would bow before other individuals, such as a king. Even patriarchs were bowed before it said, I get all of that. But what's happening in this passage is Peter is saying to Cornelius, no, don't be worshiping me. You remember what happened to Herod back here? What was that? The chapter 12 of the book of Acts, where he gets eaten by worms because he allowed people to worship him, give him the glory that belongs to God. Peter said, don't be doing that. In fact, Paul is going to be similar in this. He said, no, people are going to try to offer sacrifices to him as if he was a god, Hermes. And he said, no, don't be doing that. I'm no god. Peter, even if he was the first Pope, Peter says, don't be bowing down to me. And yet we've got the Pope who says he is the successor of the authority of Peter, who regularly allows people to not just bow down to him, but to kiss his ring and to call him Holy Father. Do you think when Holy Father, kiss a ring, bow before, does all of that sound a little bit like worshiping? Peter said, don't be doing that to me. Don't be doing it. And if anybody that Peter would want to actually be in that kind of a grovel situation, it would have been a Gentile. Because remember, the Jews hated the Gentiles. Remember the vision that it took just to get Peter to this situation, to talk to the Cornelius? Read back in the story. If there was anybody that Peter wanted to grovel at his feet, it would have been a Gentile. But Peter said, no, don't. I too am a man. And yet we got the Pope running around the world letting people bow before him. Going to make a big, well, we'll see it here. I'm going to make a big conclusion here in just a second. So, application number 3. I want to take you to Matthew 15 because this is really important. In Matthew chapter 15, Jesus is going to make a statement about worship. And he's going to say, these people honor me with their lips. He's actually quoting from the Old Testament, but he's making it applicable to his time, just as I'm making it applicable to our time. This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship me. The word vain means empty, doesn't have any value. In vain do they worship me. Why? They're teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. I'm not sure why my red line's off there, but anyhow it is. Teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. He's saying that when you teach man's stuff, man's opinion, as if it is of God, you usurp the authority of God. And so you're elevating the opinions of man. May I call it the opinions of the church, the creeds, the councils, all the stuff that the church has done over the years, suggesting that they're smarter than God. He said, when you do that, it makes your worship vain. Application number 3. By celebrating the doctrines of men, the Catholic Church has done exactly the opposite of what the shepherd commanded. The shepherd said, don't teach the doctrines of men. But the Catholic Church has done exactly the opposite. Let me prove it to you in at least 3 different ways. Number 1, Jesus told us not to call any man father in substitution of God. The Catholic Church not only calls the Pope Holy Father, they hijack God's honor by bowing before the Pope and kissing his ring. So I ask you, is the Pope the head of the church? I don't think so. He's doing exactly the opposite of what Jesus did. Now, let me take it even more poignant. My Savior didn't even have a place to lay his head. The Pope lives in a palace. Think about that. Which leads us actually to the second one. Jesus said, don't lay up treasures on the earth, because that's what the way it'll just, if you do that, it's going to distract your heart away from heaven. Don't be laying up a bunch of stuff, materialistic stuff here on earth, because the more you got, the more you're going to want to stay here. Jesus said that. But the Catholic Church lavished the Pope and the Vatican with priceless treasures, while many of their members live in poverty. I was arguing with a Catholic online. He was trying to defend all of this materialistic gluttony. And he said, well, it's just a museum. I don't care what you call it. It's treasure. And you've laid it up at the expense of folks who really need it. Now, before I leave this, you expected me to go here. Are we any different in the Protestant world? We've got our own cathedrals. Oh, they may not be as grandioso as some of the Catholic cathedrals. I get that. But when you worship in a building that sits empty for the majority of the week, and you dump your money into big columns and vaulted ceilings and high steeples and marquees out front and paved parking lots and fancy pews and elevated pulpits, are you any less guilty than what the Catholic Church does? The Catholic Church, in spite of Jesus, the true shepherd, saying, don't lay up treasures on the earth because it's going to distract you, the Catholic Church lavishes opulence on the Pope and the Vatican. Gold-plated everything. Number 3, Jesus told us that the doctrines of men would lead to vain worship. The Catholic Church is a living illustration of what Jesus said and commanded us not to be a part of. You watch some of their proceedings, the silly hats they wear, the pompous robes, the gold-plated everything, the bowing, the kissing, all of this spiritual degradation that they put forth before the world. And you want me to conclude that the Pope is the head of the church? Not the head of the Lord's church, I'll tell you that. We have 2 very different shepherds at work. One is very pompous, gold-plated everything, fancy clothing, people waiting on him hand and foot. And then we've got my Jesus. This guy goes to bed every night with silken pillows. My Jesus didn't have a place to lay his head. This fellow is just dripping with finery. My Jesus was stripped naked when he went to the cross. This individual, he allows people to kneel before him and worship him and treat him with such worshipful opulence. My Jesus deflected glory back to his Father. 2 very different shepherds working here. The Pope is not the head of the church. If anything, he is an embarrassment to what the church is supposed to be. And may I suggest to you that understanding that is absolutely essential to your salvation. Because if you can justify casting the words of Jesus out the window to justify bowing before, kissing a ring, calling him Holy Father, if you can throw the words of Jesus out the window to justify laying up treasures on earth, but we're going to call it a museum, if you can justify all the church councils and all of the various additions that have been made by the church to the scriptures in exclusion of who Jesus is, then I suggest to you you're guilty of Matthew chapter 7, 21 through 23, which concludes with, depart from me, you evildoers. 2 very different approaches to shepherding. He died for me. This guy lives in opulence. So, by way of review, Jesus did not make Peter the first pope. Even if Peter had been the first pope, he didn't let people bow before him. By celebrating the doctrines of men, the Catholic Church has done exactly the opposite of what the true shepherd commanded. Is the Pope the head of the church? Absolutely not. And for anyone who preaches that he is, I would suggest to you that you are stealing the glory of Jesus. You are robbing the glory of God, and you are in danger of Galatians chapter 1 that tells us not to add to the gospel. It's once delivered for the saints, as Jude will tell us. Do not be a pope follower, for he is pompous. He is filled with arrogant materialism. He has collected to himself all kinds of pompous power and wealth and influence at the expense oftentimes of his own subjects. The Pope, the Pope looks exactly opposite of what Jesus. Imagine what would happen if the Pope lived like Christ. If he took all the glitz and all the glory and all the glamour and all the stuff and he sold it so that he could actually serve rather than living in materialistic gluttony. Imagine. The Pope is not the head of the church. Jesus is, always has been, always will be, and I will not bow before a man, and you shouldn't either. Here are the 5 questions I tried to answer as we went through that. Hope I did a decent job. Thank you for supporting my ministry. Those of you who do, you keep me alive. You keep this stuff free. Helps us pay all kinds of bills with regards to internet fees, storing these things in places, and being able to just get it out there. Please pray for my wife. Cindy is so phenomenal. Cindy stays up late at night often to make sure that this stuff gets produced properly and out there so that people can use it. Please pray for my wife. If you have any extra mission giving that you could send our way, that would be a huge blessing, please. It's the Lord's Day. And may I ask you on the Lord's Day not to honor the Pope? May I ask you on the Lord's Day to honor the true shepherd? Go to Jesus. But I would also ask you to remember the simplicity of the way Jesus went about things, rather than all the complicated mechanisms that we place upon ourselves, whether it be in the Catholic Church or even in Restoration Christianity, sitting in pews facing the back of the head of the fellow in front of you, taking prepackaged communion kits, on and on. Jesus was simple. He was a man who, in his ending, as far as his physical life was concerned, he didn't have much at all. He was a fellow who didn't have a place to lay his head. He went through life in a very simplistic manner. Catholicism tries to elevate that to a place of craziness, just completely opposite of the way Jesus lived. But may I ask of you not to be guilty of the same thing? When you invest so much money in a pew, a vaulted ceiling, a sacred steeple, a marquee, and on and on, when you do that, I ask you, are you any less guilty than what the Catholic Church is doing? Keep it simple. Later today, I will have communion with my family in our home church, and we will literally serve communion out of a cardboard box. We do that to keep it simple, to keep us reminded that Jesus was a very simple person who wanted a grandioso intimacy. If you're going to do anything with glitz and glory, make it the intimacy. Make it the innocence. Keep it simple, keep it innocent, and keep it meaningful. Today's the Lord's Day. As you gather to think of him, do it in such a way that would actually glorify the character of Jesus. Thank you for being with me. I love you. This is Sonny Chow saying, be there, Matthew 16:26.